It was my first real job and a chance to start over. School had been a difficult time for me, but this was a fresh start, a new beginning, and anything was possible. My mum had ironed into my trousers a perfect crease, befitting of a high-powered businessman, but these trousers were part of a boiler suit that had the letters NDBC on the chest. I was working for North Down Borough Council. My fresh start was to be a bin man. As well as the boiler suit, I got a free pair of boots, a donkey jacket, and a lifetime supply of gloves. Some of you will remember the days before wheelie bins when you put your rubbish into a heavy galvanized dustbin that was collected from you from your back door. This required a fleet of dustbin carts, each with its own route, its own driver, and its own squad of bin men. When a team finished their route, their day's work was done. Some took their time and finished at 5, while others worked quickly to be home earlier. There was one notorious squad who ran the entire route, each man a part of a finely tuned rubbish collecting machine. They were usually home by mid-afternoon and washed and rested in time to work a second job in nightclubs as bouncers in the evening. I wasn't part of any regular squad. I was called the spare man. I filled in for absent workers, and when nobody was absent, I swept up litter in the Killick housing estate. Anyone here from Killick might remember the glorious days in 1983 when there wasn't a single crisp packet or cigarette butt to be seen anywhere for miles around. Those were happy days of outside work, good honest labour, and occasional cups of tea from grateful residents. The job was meant to come with its own trolley, a wheeled device with 2 yellow bins and room for brushes and shovels and litter pickers. Sadly, local kids had set fire to it while my predecessor was having a nap, and he woke up to find 2 large yellow puddles on the pavement. Each morning I was told what my duties would be, and I prayed I wouldn't find myself on the fast bin cart. When the fateful day came, the horror on my face was matched by the disappointment on the faces of my teammates who knew they wouldn't be setting any record times with me on board. I was tall and thin. In the late 18 years of my life, I had little experience of physical labour. These were scary men with sleeveless boiler suits that showed their tan and muscles and tattoos. In theory, the job wasn't very difficult. You run to the first house, you pick up the bin, you run to the cart, you empty the bin, and you return it to its place before moving on to the next house. What made it complicated was the bin cart never stopped moving. The huge metallic jaws never stopped chomping, which made the task into a high street heptathlon of lifting and carrying and running and synchronized emptying. At the first house, my heart was beating fast. This was my time to prove myself. Don't mess it up. Thankfully, the bin wasn't too heavy. Up on my shoulder and run, 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 and heave. I really didn't mean to let go of the bin, but with all the effort and the gloves and the confusion, I threw the entire thing into the giant jaws and watched as it disappeared. A workmate who saw this happen hit the big red button on the back of the cart. Red lights flashed and sirens sounded, and the bin lorry suddenly stopped. As the whole team watched, the machine was thrown into reverse and it regurgitated newspapers and potato peelings and ash and a much flatter version of my bin. Without speaking, one of my colleagues lifted a nearby brick and beat the bin back into a more three-dimensional shape before sending me to return it home. The atmosphere in the team had become tense, but thankfully I managed to complete a few houses without further event. It looked like I was getting the hang of it, but I wasn't. At the next house, the bin was nowhere to be found, not at the back door or around the side of the house. Every second of searching raised my anxiety. Eventually, I found it behind the coal bunker. But this was the heaviest bin I'd ever encountered. It took every ounce of strength I had to hoist the thing onto my shoulder, then half walking, half jogging, get it to the cart. Eventually, I caught up and determinedly not letting go, emptied 100 weight of nutty slack into the jaws of the machine. Not waiting for my colleague's reaction, I turned on my heel and replaced the bin where I got it. If you're the Bangor resident who had to do it without a couple of weeks of fuel back in the early 80s, I'd like to apologise. By late morning, the tension had eased slightly. We were on the final leg through the town centre, and teammates were starting to communicate with me. At the back of a takeaway, one of the men ran past a bin, leaving it for me, and said, "This one's yours, mate." I was their mate. I was their mate, and they were choosing which bins that I should lift. So swelling with pride, I heaved the rusty bin up onto my shoulder. It was only then that I realised there was a large hole in the base of the bin. The stuff that flowed out of it and down the back of my neck wasn't exactly solid, but it wasn't exactly liquid either, and it smelt worse, so much worse than anything I have ever smelled. We had the windows down the whole way back to the yard, but I like to think the team were laughing with me rather than at me. In my year as a council worker, I got to ride with each of the teams. I got to know the men and heard extraordinary stories told about them. Stories that might be fact or might be fiction, but can't be repeated for legal reasons. Despite my deficits, I worked to the best of my abilities, and it was appreciated. I was treated like one of the guys, although not one of the guys who got the share of the tips. I was paid £100 each week, and on Friday afternoons we rode into town in a convoy to cash our checks. When I handed in my notice, I was sorry to go, but I was going to America to work on an Indian reservation. The boss didn't seem that impressed. In fact, he didn't even look up. "You'll be well prepared for it," he said, after spending 12 months with this bunch of cowboys.
Oh, thank you very much, Campbell. Just for anybody who isn't aware of it, you can find out about Campbell's adventures, or rather some of his adventures, he censored them, on the reservation, on one of our podcasts. All you have to do is put on 10x9 podcast, Campbell Killick, and it should throw up several stories. Actually, check them all out. They're all brilliant. Lovely to see Mrs. Killick there in the background. My goodness, you don't have your sorrows to seek, do you? Oh, bless you. Thank you very much, Campbell. That was very, very funny. Thank you. This is the really exciting. Oh, sorry. We are going to be back in 2 weeks' time. And now I see a lot of familiar faces here, many of whom have been up at the Black Box podium before, but have not joined us, or rather have not told the story yet on 10x9 Zoom. So we're very keen for you to be inspired by our next theme, which Podrig is revealing now. And you can see it for yourself, obviously. It's rescue. So that is our next theme. 2 weeks' time, we'll be back here. Remember, we will have the Zoom link on our website once we get the Zoom meeting set up. So look out for that in the next few days. We will put that up on social media. If you want to follow us on social media, if you're not already, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You don't need to follow us on all three, but if you follow us on at least one, we will keep you up to date with themes, events, anything that's coming up, any unexpected things that might be coming up. We also have our 10by9.com website, and you can find out more than you ever want to know about 10by9 on our website, including a little biography of me and Podrig. Also, what else? Oh yes, the podcast, of course. Don't forget about the podcast. We have 151 podcasts, and some of them have 3 stories, some 4, some 1. So there are more than 400 amazing true stories from all over the world sitting on our website. So they're free. You can subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts, Apple or Spotify or whoever. Over to you, Patrick.
We want to thank everybody who took part tonight and told their stories. So thank you very much to Fergal McGuckin, to Maureen Boyle, to Ben Ritchie, to Lydia Hodgins, to Karen Hunter, and with a little cameo from Donna Hunter, to Stan McWilliams, to Kathy Ritchie, to Richard O'Leary, and to Campbell Killick. Thank you very much for the brilliance of these stories. We always love when we put out a theme and then you hear all the different things that come back. So thanks very much to everybody for doing that. And we look forward to hearing all the variations on the theme of rescue that come up in 2 weeks' time when we're back in the story room here at for 10 by 9.